I'm Hanne Sagalowsky, and I am thrilled to have everyone here, not only from Dallas, but also from other parts of the U.S., and certainly our speakers from Europe. Christian Bohyn is joining us from Belgium, and Marc Vervoort is joining us from the Netherlands. We also have Alejandro Escudero from NAR, who is part of the NAR global staff, and he specifically deals with ambassador associations. And this is, of course, our introduction to the Dutch and the Dutch market, and MetroTex is thrilled to be joining you now, or partnering with you, and becoming the Ambassador Association. From MetroTex, we also have Janet Kane, who is our CEO, and we have Tremaine, who is our current president, and we also have Lori Aguirre, who is the vice chair for Global. You cannot see her because we can only have 6 panelists up at one time, but she is with us. And I am Hanne Sagalowsky, and I am the global chair for MetroTex this year, but serve in a dual role also as the NAR Western European coordinator. So let's start, excuse me, let's start out with having Alejandro Escudero, explain the Ambassador Association relationship that we are now going to share with the Dutch Association. Alex.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, Hanne. Well, first and foremost, I would love to start by saying that I'm truly honored and happy to be here with all of you today, representing the National Association of Realtors. Thank you so much for the invitation to our great friends from MetroTex. I truly do wish this had been an in-person event. I hold phenomenal memories a couple of years ago, but it looks like we're going to have to wait a little bit until that is again possible. Anyways, I am super excited again to be on this panel for many reasons. I think we are all going to learn a lot about not only the country of the Netherlands, which we will, I'm sure, having Marc here with us, but also about global real estate in general, and definitely about the Ambassador Association program. So for those of you who are not that familiar with this program, what is it exactly? Okay, so the Ambassador Association program is a program, as its name indicates, that is handled by NAR, and through which we assign a country in which we do have a bilateral relationship to a local or state board. In this case, we have a phenomenal example here with NVM, being our bilateral partner in the Netherlands, and MetroTex as one of our most active and one of the largest, actually, local boards that we have. We currently, just to mention a fun, interesting detail, we have over 100 partners in 75 countries, and I'm pretty happy to report that 45 local and state boards participate on this program. So again, there's 45 of those countries we have relationships, we have bilateral relationships in, that are assigned to a local or state board here in the US. Just to talk a little bit about the benefits of this program, or why is it that it's very meaningful, and it makes a lot of sense for us to keep boosting the global real estate. I'm going to highlight 3 of them. Okay, so one of the main benefits, our members, both in the US and those outside of the US, are able to make connections, to build relationships, which is, you know, you guys are in a business of people. This is a people's business, not a house's business, and that is something that we really emphasize and highlight with this program. Remember that many of the members that we have outside of the USA are also Realtor members. Are members of the National Association of Realtors, who abide by the same code of ethics as you, who are practitioners, just like you. This is one of the beauties of the program. It helps connect and build bridges amongst countries, and that is one of the main benefits that I would highlight of this project. And we're able again to conduct it thanks to very engaged and committed associations like MetroTex in this case. It also gives, this is a very important thing that I always like to highlight, because it's something that many practitioners don't quite see in the beginning, but it gives us as association executives the opportunity to also establish a connection and learn from each other on the association to association level. Okay, both parties, we can learn from each other. We learn best practices, how to run an association. Again, it's this exchange of information that also helps us grow the international network, so that the members on both sides can benefit from. This is one of the coolest things the program also offers. And last but not least, I would also like to mention that it definitely promotes and incentivizes win-win activities through which the members in both sides can benefit from. This, for example, today, and I congratulate the MetroTex and its Global Council for organizing it, is a perfect example of that. But we have tons of others, like, trade missions, even those virtual nowadays are being a good hit. Joint educational courses, market information exchange, etc. There's a whole lot of opportunities out there to create, again, meaningful relationships that can obviously end up translating into business amongst our members. And that is another one of the coolest things that I would highlight of this program. And this is one of the main reasons why we're so appreciative that there's boards in the US who are willing to support us with these global efforts. I'm sure many of our panelists have had some absolutely great examples of these things that I'm talking about. I know actually that, for example, our friend from the Netherlands, Marc, and Christian, I know that they've been working together already. And there is another thing that I'd like everybody to note and acknowledge after this panel. On this Ambassador Association program, we work as one big team. We're a huge team, not only within the US, but also outside of the US. Outside of the US, I would highlight that the main player that we have is our bilateral partner. There's cases in which we have more than one bilateral partner as well in a given country. So this would be the main player outside of the US. We have Marc here representing MVM. Again, I'm sure he's gonna tell us a bunch of great things about the Netherlands and about how his association helps members elevate their professionalism and build relationships, which again, I'm gonna repeat this a lot because I think it's one of the key things that this program enhances, creating and building relationships. And on the US side, we have 3 key players. They're also here at the local or state board, in this case, local board, through the Global Council. You cannot imagine how important and meaningful it is for NAR to have, again, local boards like you promote global business the way you guys do. This helps us big time with our goal of making global real estate more accessible to all of our members in the US. In addition to that, we also have the NAR Global Coordinator. She doesn't need an introduction, Hanne Sagalowsky, as many of you know. She's our global coordinator to Western Europe. She has been doing a phenomenal job for the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, Hanne, already 2 years. And the global ambassador from NAR, we have Christian Bohyn as well here, my good friend Christian, who's the global ambassador to Belgium and the Netherlands. This is a volunteer position. Both are volunteer positions, and I have to say I'm really, really proud to have 2 of the most committed volunteers here with us today. Before I turn it over to Hanne, I'd like to highlight that the 2 people that I've just mentioned are absolutely instrumental when it comes to not only this program, but to our global relationships as National Association of Realtors with the country of Netherlands. Hanne Sagalowsky, proud member of MetroTex, current global ambassador, as I've said, to Western Europe. Hanne, I don't know if you've shared this with our our friends at MetroTex, but it has been under your supervision that our relationships in Western Europe have gone to the next level. We are, in terms of numbers and engagement levels, where we had never been before. To supervise this region, and you're doing a tremendous job. And also, Christian, straight from Orlando, currently in Belgium, he's done a tremendous job to help us strengthen the relationship that we have in the Netherlands, in this case, with MVM. He's a very seasoned and extremely passionate professional. He's been the main face of NAR in the countries that he has served as the ambassador, as the global ambassador for a while, and he definitely plays a critical role in both countries, in keeping both countries, I must say, engaged with NAR. I would like to. The reason I'm highlighting these two volunteers is for you to think of them as resources. Okay, this is another thing that this program wants to bring to the table, is the possibility to have local resources that can serve you as a member of MetroTex, develop and build your international and global networks. They're both extremely dedicated, super involved on a national and global level. And I truly feel like you're very lucky. There are people that are more than willing to share their knowledge, their expertise. And I would definitely highlight the fact that they can be great resources for you, especially for you guys at MetroTex. Use in the best sense of the word the knowledge of Hanne as the current chair of the Global Council. I know she would be more than happy to share all the experiences that she's having with Western Europe, which again she's taken to a whole next level. So I truly foresee a phenomenal and very fruitful relationship amongst MetroTex and the Netherlands. And again, I'm gonna be here throughout the panel. Any questions, I'd be way more than happy to respond. If I can be of help for anything regarding Western Europe, NAR, I am the staff person for NAR that supervises that. And I'll just say once again, Janet, Terry, Lori, every single person here from MetroTex, thanks again for the invitation. Steve Tremaine, thanks a lot for coordinating this panel. I know it's going to be extremely successful. And thanks again for having me. I cannot wait to hear all the things that Marc's going to share with us about the Netherlands, and look forward to seeing you guys succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And I was going to also mention Steve, but he wasn't up there, and I was looking at all the faces. So, of course, Steve Tremaine is our MetroTex staff for global and for commercial. So I don't know if he's going to pop up, since we can only have 6 people up there, and you can see their faces. But Steve is our excellent staff that we work with on the global level. So thank you for putting this together, Steve. I appreciate it. Thank you, Alex. I don't know that I deserve everything you said, but that was certainly very kind of you. And I would really like for Marc to go next. And I have read your bio, but Marc, would you, before you do your presentation, would you remind everyone, tell everyone what your background is, because it's very unusual where you are now and where you were before. So if you can give us a quick synopsis, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Anne. I will do my best. Thank you, first of all of you, for having me here. I feel very honored to be your guest on this panel and to be presenting something about the Netherlands and about the Dutch real estate market, of course, and get to know MetroTex also a little bit better. And thank you for the introduction, Alejandro, to talk more about the Ambassador Association. And it's nice to see Christian up there, or you're up there on my screen anyway, but we've been working together already for a while, so it's really nice to have you here also. Yeah, a little bit about my background, that's true. It's where do I start? Let me begin with my own experience in the United States. I have quite a long relationship actually with the United States. The earliest, which I actually didn't mention in my bio, was that I actually was an exchange student when I was 16 in the United States, in Denver. But my host family, my American host family, was actually from Houston, which I very close to Dallas. I know if there's a little competition between Dallas or Houston, but so I get to hi y'all and all that kind of stuff. So it was very lovely. And then I went back to Holland. I studied cultural anthropology, which you know, what does that have to do with real estate, you might think, but has been very handy so far because, of course, you do meet people from lots of different backgrounds, cultures. You know, you learn how to respect that, and also you see the differences and you see that as an enrichment. And while studying, I got the opportunity to actually go back to the US, and I went to New York, where my partner then was actually a real estate agent. And that's kind of how I got my taste of real estate, by doing real estate in New York. I did my real estate course there with the Real Estate School of New York. And I was focusing mostly on diplomats, actually. A lot of diplomats, of course, in the UN, who have a special need. You know, they're mostly European diplomats, so they have a European background. Because I knew in New York and Europe, it was a very good mix of bringing these two different cultures and groupings together and help them find a home to live in the United States. So I did it for a while, then actually returned to Europe again. I did some other stuff in the meantime, and then I got restless again. I moved over to Spain, to the south of Spain, where again somehow real estate crossed my path, and I worked for a little while with, I don't know if you have Engel and Focus, I think you have them in the United States also, a big firm. So I started working for them, and I also set up a real estate office in the south of Spain, helping Dutch people buy houses on the coast in Spain. So I did that for a little while, and then I want to be close to my family again. My sister got a lovely little child, my niece. I wanted to be involved with that, so I moved back to Holland. And while I was looking for jobs in Holland, I saw this amazing job for program manager at the NVM, which combined real estate with project management, which I used to do. So that's how I got into the NVM. And then I got the opportunity to work with internationals and expats, and that's how I met Christian, and that's how I ended up with you guys again. So that's, maybe it's a very long introduction. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't bore you, but that's a bit of my background.
No, I think that's really interesting. And I didn't realize that you also ended up in the United States as a foreign exchange student. That's how I ended up in the US, but I didn't go back.
You stayed.
I grew up in Denmark, came as a foreign exchange student, and I'm still here. So yes, thank you, Marc. And on to you have a little presentation for us as an introduction to the relationship and the Dutch market. So take it away, Marc.
Yes, it's on screen now, right? All right. I can't see you guys, so I hope it all goes well. If it doesn't go well, just let me know. So yeah, I'm here to present a little bit about the Dutch market, the NVM and the Dutch market. So first, let me tell a little bit about the Netherlands. We are a much smaller country than the United States, of course. We do have 17 million people, and it's quite a densely populated country, about 1,350 people per square mile. So we all see that actually in the building. The building is quite complicated, which I get back to later. Our GDP is quite high, 900 billion, and also per capita is quite a high income of 53,000. And unemployment still now, even with Corona, is quite low at 4.5%. So it's actually really good, a really good, solid market you have in the Netherlands. And of course, it also you see it back in the residential market. But first, before I get to that, let me speak a little bit about the NVM group. So the NVM is comparable, I guess, to the NAR in the United States. We have a members council in which different agents take place from different branches. You have the residential branch, business branch, and actually also a rural branch, which specializes in rural properties and also land transactions. And with it, we also have a general board, which again are represented those three groups equally. And a part of that board is the association office, for which I work, actually. So program managers in there. We also have support. We have IT in there. We have various things which actually support our agents, our members in the daily work. Also, on top of that, we have a holding company. And below that holding company, we actually have 5 private companies, of which we are 100% owned, but they are private companies. And which of the most valuable is actually Funda, which you see there on the right. It's Funda is the #1 residential property site, which I will actually go to the next slide to tell a little bit more about. RealWorks is our CRM system in which 80% of our agents work. Then the academy is to teach our agents and to get their basically their membership and their diploma for real estate agents, which I think is quite a bit longer than actually in the United States. I don't know how it is in Texas, but our agents have to study at least for about a year, quite a few hours, and then after there's a lot of education you have to follow, obligated education. Then we have Flux, which is an automatic valuation company, which is mostly focused on business data, and BrainBay, which is our newest daughter, which is focusing on all the data we process, which is, I think, comparable to an MLS in the United States, but they also make extra products for our members. So the NVM, we're like 122 years young. We've been around for quite a while. We have about 4,500 members. These are like individual offices. And the sales in 2019, we sold about 180,000 homes, and 70% of homes are sold by NVM agents in Holland. So we are by far the largest organization of Association of Real Estate Agents in the Netherlands. As such, we're also an important partner with, for example, the government, speaking about issues we see in the market. Funda, which I briefly mentioned before, is by far the most popular residential property website in the Netherlands, with 68 million visitors monthly. And also 86% of Dutch people use Funda actually to find a home. There's the English link, actually, because we also have it in English, because we have quite a lot of, especially in Amsterdam in the West, there's a lot of internationals living. BrainBay, I also mentioned, we're the only MLS in the Netherlands, so we don't have any other MLSs. We have the central database, and we actually have, as NVM, 90% of all property data in the Netherlands, which is a very valuable source, of course. Let me talk a little bit about the Dutch residential market. By the way, if you have questions, just put them in the chat, I think there is, or ask them to Hanne. I will get back to that later also. In Q2 from 2020, the existing home sales were sold about 38,000 by NVM agents. That's actually 40% more compared to the first quarter, though a slight dip compared to 2019, which probably has to do, of course, with COVID. The average sales price is 335,000, which is still rising, actually. So that's up 2.1% for the last quarter, the first quarter in 2020, and almost 9% for compared with a year ago. Houses sell very quickly, less than about 28 days now, and 52% of houses are sold above asking price. These are some of the graphs. So you see here in 2015, only 10% or under 10% was sold above asking price. This is when we just were coming out of the euro crisis here. And you see how the market has developed throughout the year, and now it's over 50%. And next to it, you see time to sale in days, which also in 2015 was still more than 100. And now, basically 5 years later, it's only 28 days. And you see it going down further and further. As the opposite, the transaction price actually going up further and further and further, which is now 335,000 on average for existing property. We also have some numbers on new construction sales. Sales by NVM agents are about 7,200 from this quarter, the second quarter. This is lower than the first quarter, but still quite up actually from a year ago by 8% even. We do normally see that Q1 is normally a bit of a slower sale with new construction sales. And this extra drop, we do think it's because the price on average are a bit higher, 401,000, which is for Holland is quite a high price for a house. And we saw with COVID that especially the buyers who were willing to spend a little bit more were holding back to see how the whole COVID price would develop. But the prices also still going up, even 9% more this year than compared to last year. We see for a few long-term trends. I'm also curious to see what you guys, what's happening over in MetroTex around Dallas, what's happening there. For example, our interest rate is still very low at this point. And also the borrowing capacity, which we see for house price, is actually problematic. We see that the average income, they can borrow about 157,000 euros. If you do that 2 times the average income, which is a relatively small group, that's 303,000 euros. But the sales price, oh, sorry, in reverse, the medium sales price, 303,000. And if you have 2 times the average income, is 329,000. So you see that what we see in Holland is that a smaller group can actually afford a new home, especially for starters in the house market. That's quite problematic now. And we also have a big issue with a housing shortage. I mentioned before that we are a very densely populated country. There's quite a lot of building restrictions going on, also quite a lot of environmental restrictions. And we see there's a big shortfall actually in new construction. So that's also one of our main lobby points as NVM, to see how we can build more houses yearly. We should actually build at least 80,000 houses a year as in Holland. We're at like 40,000 now, so that's actually a big issue. So I think that's the end of my presentation for now. I hope you guys have a lot of questions for me, which I would love to answer. And thank you so much for having me here already.
Thank you so much. Great presentation, and I wonder if you will share it with us so we can have a copy of it.
Yes.
That would be great.
And also, if I may add, I also have a which I also will send to you, and you can share with everybody, is actually a English brochure about the housing market in the Netherlands in 2019. Of course, the data has changed now, but it's all in English and has of residential, commercial, the whole property market. So it might be of interest to you too. I will share it with you and with your members.
That would be great. That would be great. We really appreciate it. Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and that question always comes up, you mentioned MLS. Now, MLS in most of the places that have a so-called MLS is very different from our MLS. So if you're so familiar with our MLS, you know, you collaborate and you share permissions based on the MLS. Can you talk about a typical residential transaction in Holland? How does that work as far as cooperation? Is there buyer brokerage? If you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yes, no, of course. There are a few differences. Like, for example, in our MLS, we don't show the commission fees. Also, the way the commission works is also quite different, because I think in the United States, the seller's agent has the commission, and you split that with the buyer's agent, if I remember correctly. In the Netherlands, if you use a buyer agent, the buyer pays for the buyer agent, so they have their own commission fee actually, and then the seller agents pays for the seller. So those are two different things. And how it works with us, the MLS, you can actually enter as an agent. You can enter. You don't directly enter it into the MLS. You enter it via a CRM system, which is connected with the MLS. There are various parties. We have our own system, but you also have other private parties who develop that. Then you enter your data, and then as an NVM agent, you receive all the data that's there in the housing market back. So you can get a complete overview of what's actually for sale at that point, but also all the transaction prices. I think up to, well, if you really want to go historic, up to 30 years back, you can actually have insights in the data, which is a very interesting thing for our agents compared to the NVM is the largest association, but not the only one. But because it's only our MLS, only our agents actually have insight into all the data. Because if you want to place your property on Funda, which you want to do as an agent in Holland, because otherwise your property, well, it can get sold now in the current market, but normally that's where people go and look. So everybody wants to get on Funda. To get on Funda, you have to put your property in our MLS. And if you're an NVM agent, you have the benefit to actually see all the data. If you're a different agent from an association or not connected, the only data you see is your own data and not the data of the other agents. So as an NVM agent, you actually have a very strong USP with this data towards your customers. I don't know if that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. So one kind of follow-up question to that. How common is it now to have a buyer's representative? How many buyers take advantage of that, and do they see a need for it? Do you have any idea of the percentage versus the ones that go directly through a listing agent?
Yeah, actually we do. It depends a lot on the region, actually, because it's not quite as high. I think about 20% right now of consumers actually use a buyer's agent. So that's compared to I'm very curious also about your numbers, but we see it in certain areas. It's up to 50 or 60%, because that's also where you see there's more collaboration going on between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. Sometimes now we see with our members that the seller's agent and the buyer's agent seem to be in a bit of competition, because the seller agent would prefer a client sometimes to come alone, so they can also sell their house, which they leave behind later. So there's the cooperation between buyers and seller agents in certain reasons really good. So there you see there's a lot more a lot more people who use a buyer's agent, while others it's not as great. As NVM, we are focusing on that because we do see that the buyer agent is actually a key part of our future, because we do see consumers want an agent to do a lot more than just sell the house. They want, it's about relationship and about people, as Alejandro also mentioned. So they want to be taken care of, they want to be helped, they don't want to waste their time having to look for all these houses, do all of this. They want an agent who arranges that. So we're developing a lot of tools now actually to strengthen the position of our buyer's agent in the market and to really help these future buyers to find this house, especially now in a very tight housing market. A buyer's agent can really make the difference between actually finding that dream home or losing out on it. Yeah, so we're working on that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've seen in Northern Europe as well, that there's more of a trend in that direction, and that the associations are providing courses, and of course we have a buyer representative, the ABR Association, buyer representative course through NAR. We have some other questions, and I know Terry had some questions. Terry, do you want to? There we go.
Hi there. That was great information. Really, really enjoyed learning all the differences.
Oh, good to hear.
Can you tell the state of your market in the Netherlands? Do you think it's just increasing economically? Are things just moving rapidly? It seems like they are from what you said.
Yes, so far so good. Of course, so far the market has held up really well, also during the whole COVID crisis. Even now, we still see a rise in the cases again in COVID, but the market is actually performing really well. I think it has to do with a few things. First of all, we already had a very tight housing market, so whereby before you would maybe have, especially in certain areas in the Netherlands, you would maybe have 50 people wanting to view a home. Now you have 25 people, but there are more serious people who look at a home. So actually, for an agent, it can actually be quite beneficial because you have more serious clients who are coming in. And secondly, as NVM, we immediately set out this COVID code for agents as how to show houses in a safe manner, which we actually also I think have in English. So I can share it with you guys also. So our housing market, also the showing of houses, never stopped during Corona, because we immediately responded with the code and made sure that viewings could be conducted safely with the proper measures. So actually the housing market continued even during Corona. We do see that the rental market had a little step back because a lot of the expats who left, but even now that market is going up again. So far so good, but of course it does depend how the economy will perform in the future. Employment has held up, but with government's measures, so we have to see if on the long term that's viable. But so far so good, actually. It's going. It's a good market.
Has it affected your interest rates at all?
So far not. No. Also the interest rates haven't gone up yet, and also they're actually historically low. So far it's good. I must say tomorrow in Holland we do have our King's speech, as they say, which is kind of like the State of the Union in the United States, in which there will be some measures. One of the measures that will be there, but which is actually will be good for the housing market, probably is that they will cancel a transaction tax. So especially the people only on the market, for younger people, they can buy a house more easily. We're not yet completely sure of how we feel about it, because it can actually also make the price rise even quicker for some people. So but the intention is good. So we'll see how that works.
Okay, thank you. What can MetroTex do to further the relationship and with you and our members? What can we do to make this all work?
Oh, it's a very good question. Well, I think first of all, these kind of exchanges are really really good. So I was very happy to be invited for this panel and tell a little bit more about the Netherlands. I hope you guys at one point can also tell a little bit more about MetroTex to our members. So I would be very happy to organize such a thing, because I think our members would be very interesting to hear more about how you guys work there. I also understand there's something like a memorandum of understanding, or where you put I don't know, the MOU, I think you call it.
Memorandum.
Memorandum, that was the word. Yes, thank you, Terry. Where you can put in some things on paper. But I think mostly exchanging knowledge. I know you guys have a lot of CIPS brokers also in your region, which I'm working together with Christian actually to bring that to the Netherlands. So I'm very curious to see how we can learn more about that. Maybe have some exchanges of information on that too, to really warm up our members for that and to see what the benefits of those are.
That might be a really good topic to have with your members and some of our CIPS designees, and talk about, how do you use that designation,
yes.
and how can we collaborate?
Yes, that would be great.
And I keep getting something over here in the chat box. Well, I guess that was just answered. One of the questions from Steve Trine was, does NVM promote the CIPS designation? And I think you just answered that question, actually.
Yes, we're starting to. Actually, we actually had, just before COVID broke out, we actually had this big meeting planned where we had, I think, about 80 or 90 agents who were going to attend to actually introduce CIPS and then start with the first course after the summer. And then, of course, COVID broke out, so we couldn't have those meetings. And also because we actually have to fly in the teachers from the United States, and right now travel between Europe, unfortunately, and the US is not quite possible yet. So that's kind of what, but we're still planning, hopefully, for Q1 to really start at Q1 next year, and then roll it out more.
That's great. Another question that's come in is how and obviously you are fluent in English, but how multilingual are most of the agents in Holland?
I would say they all speak English. I mean, 95%, but also most Dutch speak English. So, and then I think a lot of them speak German, especially towards the border with Germany. Some of them French, some of them Spanish, but English almost everybody. Yes, maybe in a few smaller places, but in general, most of them. Yes.
Another question that came in is in the U.S. we're starting to see a little bit of a trend. It's a very recent trend from urban housing, based on what we're experiencing with COVID, to the suburbs and a bit more rural. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, we do actually see the trend a little bit. I'm not sure if it's just COVID in the Netherlands. We have been looking into the data for that. We have seen a slight movement, but what mostly drives it in Holland right now is that most of the cities are just so expensive that you see an overflow to the surrounding areas where property prices are, well, not a little less high. Or you see a lot of families, people my age, getting kids, and they sell the house in the city, which has a lot of overvalue, and then they could buy a not much nicer house in the suburbs with more space. So but we do see that movement going on, and there have been stories because of COVID it has been accelerating a little bit, but we have to look more at the data for the next quarters to really prove that.
Do you have any idea of what the percentage of home ownership is in Holland?
I should. But right now, let me get back to that one. It's quite high though, I think. But I'm not, I would have to check that for you. But that's a very good question, actually. Let me check that for you.
Yeah, and then to give Kristen a chance also here. Kristen, there's a question here about transactions with referrals and referring back and forth. I know you have some experience in that. Can you talk about that? Because as we heard, the way a transaction is conducted is very different because you typically or very often only have one agent involved. So if you have a client that you might want to refer to someone in Holland, and as the U.S. practitioner expecting a referral fee, is that a possibility? How would that work? I know that would be something that our members would be interested in.
Yeah, Hanne, that is a possibility. I mean, of course, if you bring on a client and you call a Dutch agent and you say he's in Amsterdam and you say I have somebody who wants to buy a property in Amsterdam, can I get a referral fee? I'm sure. I mean, and Marc we'll have to confirm, but I'm sure that 95% of agents will say, yeah, sure. But I always say, just put it in writing and make sure you got this. But I've had it happening. I've had people from the US contacting me because they inherited something in Europe and they wanted to be connected with the European agent. And when I explained to the European agent that we have a referral system, they agree. They agree to share commission. Why not? I mean, to get a client to sell a property, that's a general thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to concur. I actually, when we were talking about CIPS, we also mentioned referral fees, and I think a lot of agents would be actually interested in that, especially if, it's also a sign of corporation, so they do understand that if you refer that there might be a fee for that. So I think that's actually really good. And to get back on your question about home ownership in the Netherlands, it's 70%.
Thank you. That is very high. Janet, I'm sure you have questions also. So.
Thanks, Hanne. So Marc, just curious, you've talked about the different home prices. What is an average home size that we're talking about for these homeowners? Talk about the size of perhaps an introductory home, and then what's the size home that people are moving up into?
So the size, that's a very good question. It really depends where you are, I would say, in the Netherlands. Of course, it's like that in the United States too. I would say an average home for a family, well, first of all, they're smaller than the United States, I can tell you that. You guys have quite big homes. I would say for like a starter out home, if you're especially in the cities, you would have to think about, for example, I live in Amsterdam. If you want a start out home, it will be about 50 square meters. That's a square footage, I'm not quite sure, but it's not very big. Sorry?
500.
Yes, so that, but in Amsterdam, for example, price for that would be about, depending on your neighborhood, would be about 350 or 400,000 euros right now. So that's quite expensive. If you move out, then, but that's also a great thing, because if you you know, bought your house a little bit earlier, now it's actually a very good time to sell, and then you can move out exactly. For example, if you move in with your family, you move more to the suburbs, you would have to think about, let's say, a 3 or 4 bedroom home, 2 floors, 3 floors. They're about, I would say, about 180 square meters, about 150, 180 square meters. I can get you the more exact numbers. I'm happy to share it with you. And that would be a very typical home. And that's also where a lot of people then stay in for a long time. So we also see, for example, a lot of Dutch senior citizens. They live in quite large homes, like I said, between 150 to 200 square meters. And not enough homes are getting built. So we're also looking like, how can you create more movement in the market, whereby like these homes for senior citizens, which are actually quite large and you know, have a lot of maintenance, you can move them to a home which is more appropriate for them, and actually maybe create more space for people with families again. But that's something we're looking at it as NBM, how we can stimulate that market. But those are about, of course, you have a lot of sizes in between, but that's kind of how the ideal trajectory would be like.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dana.
Oh, I just had one more question. So you had mentioned that there were some environmental constraints that were really hurting the kind of the building new homes, and I was just curious as what those environmental concerns are.
Yes, that's it was actually a very big issue this year. It's it's NO2. It's like there was a law, I think actually a European law, whereby you could designate certain areas as national preservation areas, and then if you build within close to that area, then the how do you say, exhaust of a certain thing, kind of like CO2, but it's a different one, could not be above a certain level. So the government had developed a certain instrument for that to measure that. Now it turns out that the higher court in Holland has said that instrument is not correct, which basically meant that a lot of construction sites could not build anymore until they could comply with the norm, which was quite hard actually, and not only building sites, but also highways, everything. It really put a stop in a lot of construction. So now the government is looking into how they can actually reduce, while giving actually preference to home building. So, for example, one of the measures being to go ahead with certain construction areas, but they lowered the speed limit on our highways now, so you have less exhaust of this type of chemical. So that's actually the main issue. It's just because, so you can't, if you're building close to a certain preservation area which is designated as such, then it's quite difficult now. And then next to it also, but this is more environmental, next to it also, it's just there's a lot of building is done by local governments in Holland. There's not a certain central oversight. And also there, again, there's a lot of people who would not like you to build, like I think you call it NIMBY, not in my backyard kind of thing. It's like people love the green areas, which is, of course, we can understand, but it makes it really hard for cities to expand in Holland, next to the fact that the ground prices are really expensive.
A couple of questions have come in, and one of them is really important, I think. Well, they're all important, but this one in particular. Are there any restrictions on foreigners buying properties in Holland?
No.
Okay.
No.
So commercial.
So go ahead and buy.
So not even in Amsterdam, where housing is at a premium. Are there any restrictions there?
No, there's no restriction on buying property. They're looking into maybe having a restriction on the usage of property. So let's say you're an investor in certain areas in Amsterdam. I think they are looking into making sure that you can only buy a house if you're actually going to live in the house. But that's not law yet, I think. But that actually we'll know more probably about that tomorrow. But they're looking at those kind of measures because they do see investors are buying up certain houses and then or renting them out for very high prices or to Airbnb and those kind of companies. They're looking into that. But the side effect of that also would be that you as a parent could, for example, not buy a house for your kid because you're not going to live there. So it's, again, it can be good intention, but they would have to work it out more into law. But in general, you can still buy property. And that might just be for certain areas in Holland.
Oh, another question deals with homeowner association fees. So are you familiar with that?
The homeowner, yes.
Yeah, are there homeowner associations with fees in Holland, just like we have in the US or, in a building in New York or something like that?
Yes, there are. Yeah. Especially in the bigger cities, especially, I would say especially in Amsterdam, but also in other cities. If you have an apartment, that tends to be a homeowner association. It's not like a co-op board or anything like you have in New York. It is, but there is a homeowners association. So we also, our agents always recommend to really look into the financial status of the homeowner association. They need to have good plans. There's a fee and all that kind of stuff. But they don't, for example, have a say in if you can buy the property or not. And if you have your own home, let's say just a house, then that not tends to be a homeowner association, except sometimes for the parking lot, which is a shared service. So then there would be association for that.
What's the typical percentage between the purchase price and the loan, if there is such a thing as loan to value?
Yeah, there is. Your loan can be, how to look at it here, that you do a valuation of your house, an independent valuation, and the loan the bank will give you it will only be 100% of the valuation of the home. Before there was higher, so you could, for example, loan more than the valuation price of your house. For example, then use it for reforms or actually pay certain fees. That's not possible anymore. As let's say the valuation is lower than the purchase price, that means you would have to actually pay more from your own money.
Right. Okay. And also, how about the long term? There are very few countries that have a 30-year loan. What do you have? What's the most common loan?
30 years.
Also
Yes.
30 years. Yeah.
Yes, it's 30 years. They have gotten strict in the way that you actually do have to pay down the mortgage. Before, until the financial crisis, there were a lot of interest-only mortgages where you would just pay the interest on the mortgage. That's not the case anymore. So you do pay it down. Yeah, but it's mostly a 30-year loan.
It's a 30-year loan, but is it a 30-year fixed interest, or does the interest rate change?
You can choose that. A lot of people, you can have a variable interest rate, or you can fix it for 5 or 10 years or even longer. Of course, that's a relatively low interest rate. If you do fix it for a longer time, it will be higher than the current interest rate, but you do have less of a risk that it will, let's say the interest rate would suddenly go up, then you're more sure about what you're paying. So I think
Right.
A lot of people, I don't have hard data on that right now, but a lot of people would choose for like a 5 or 10-year fixed mortgage rate.
Right. That's what I thought, that you might be able to get 30 years, but most people would not choose that because of that.
Yeah.
Christian, you've been very quiet. So what questions do you have? What do you want to tell us? We're grateful that you're here with us, and I know what are you working with the Dutch at the moment? What are you working on? What's coming? What's in the pipeline?
Let me unmute myself to start. We had a couple of things due to COVID that have been pushed back, of course. We were working on this CIPS course. They also wanted to travel. They traveled to, they wanted to come with a delegation to the NAR conference in New Orleans, which is not going to happen. We're trying to see if we can do something during New Orleans where we can have a conference, but of course with the time difference, we got to figure out that NAR would do something in the morning, which then would be late afternoon here, to get people to be interested still after a day's work to join into a conference or video conference. But those are the kind of things we're looking at. There was a question that you had on your list for the panel, like what can MetroTex do for Holland or for NVM, and that's one of the things as a global ambassador I notice when I'm at the conference in NAR and people coming from other countries. It's always wonderful to be able to put the Ambassador Association, members of the Ambassadors Association together with the members of their co-association in the other country. So, you know, it could be a joint event, a joint, meeting, a separate meeting, not related to the NAR schedule, but something where really we can connect and grow this relationship, which I think it's all about connections and contacts and personal connections. And the more we can do that, the better. So that for me is something, just try and do as much networking as we can, and try and take advantage of events that are internationally, where Dutch would come to MetroTech and vice versa, where the Americans would come to do a good soccer event in Holland. I mean, just maybe do a little joint little thing with the realtors.
Right.
Great.
Another really good question that has come in is, we know some of the southern countries and some of the islands are offering citizenship with an investment. The question is, are there any incentives for foreign buyers, including citizenship, through investment programs?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I would have to check. I don't think there's a specific investment type of visa, but I would have to check about that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it, but that doesn't mean anything.
I don't think it's specifically promoted. I'm sure about that because it's
right. Okay, let me see if there's anything else.
If you came to MetroTex to visit us, what would you like to do? You talked about activities, but what would you like to see in Texas, in Dallas, Fort Worth?
Well, I would like to get to know Dallas. What did you say, Christian?
South Fork Ranch.
Oh, well, there we go. I'm not sure what it is, but I would love to see it.
It's from the famous movie Dallas. You remember the old?
Of course, Dallas. Yes.
Royal family, the Ewing family. I don't know if the ranch still there, but I know it was very big in Europe when they had the series going. Yeah.
So there we have the first outing.
Now we just have to buy Jerry Jones' house.
We'd love to have you.
Hanne, I was going to say, along the lines of the question that Terry was asking, Marc, something similar to what you guys did at MetroTex with the group of Spaniards who came visit you 2 years ago. That would be extremely beneficial and really cool for a potential MVM delegation. Like, get to know more about the MLS, even getting to know how MetroTex is run as an association. I myself found it fascinating. Visiting the MetroTex store.
Assuming that I might be here for a little while.
That was super cool. Right? So that's just an idea.
Yeah. So Marc, that was a full day. We had a group Spaniards who were here, I think, at the time for a CRS convention that happened to be in Dallas, and MetroTex hosted all of them for a full day. So we talked about MLS, we visited MetroTex. I saw our store and loved the store actually that we have, all the different things that are available for realtors there. And then we also took them out to visit a brokerage, an office, a very large office. And then we took them to a new development, I believe. So it was a full day. So something like that. I was going to ask you also, Marc, do you have any convention or meeting coming up that we can, well, we may not in person this year, obviously, to participate in, but do you usually have an annual meeting? And participation, if a small group wanted to attend, would that?
Yes, we do. First of all, the idea for Dallas and the visit, that sounds actually lovely. We were with actually a very big group of real estate agents at the Inman in New York, and also in NAR, but you know, there's a lot of agents, Dutch agents actually came there. I think we were there with over 100 agents or even more. And what they really love doing is, apart from the whole Inman, actually what I really, really liked is we visited this project on the Upper West Side, I think 200 Amsterdam Tower, where they met a lot of local agents and they were just exchanging experiences. They got to know the project, you know, the stuff they normally do also in Holland, but now with exchanging this knowledge and see how agents work there and see what's being developed there, and an MLS, that's what they really would love, and I think that would be of great interest. So now I forgot your first question, actually. So
yeah, so actually, I was at that Inman conference with you, and I saw the presentation at the hotel when we talked about all of that. And yeah, and that's really very similar to what we did at MetroTex. It's just a different setting. It was in the association setting. So anything like that, and you know, if Inman is continuing to have their New York, or if they're doing the Vegas later in person, you certainly easily enough can fly to Dallas and be here for a day or two, and then go on to whatever conference you might be interested in, whether it's Inman, NAR, or and also we would obviously love to have you attend our Texas Realtor Conference, where you can meet with all of the Texas realtors together, and that's obviously a larger conference. So there's a number of possibilities for
that actually sounds great, and we do actually also organize for our agents. We do organize actually quite a lot of visits abroad. They do sometimes smaller groups, sometimes larger groups, and not only Inman but also certain cities. And I think definitely Dallas, Texas, especially now with our sister association there, would be of great interest. So once the whole traveling is open again, we can definitely, I think, organize something for that. And I remember the question about our event. Yes, we do. Once a year, we do organize a national event for the NVM, where I think about 2,000 of our members attend, where we talk about, you know, the whole year, forecast, about innovation. We invite different speakers, and of course, you guys would be very welcome there to attend. And I do think this year we have to see how it goes with COVID. So if it's, there's a good chance it will go more digital. So then I'm sure we can get some invites for you guys too. I don't think there would be any issue. We would be glad to have you there. It would be Dutch time though, so you would have to get up maybe a bit early.
Yeah,
but worth it.
I think we're out of time for this, but I want to just open it up to the panelists to see if anybody has any last comments. If just unmute yourselves if you have any comments or any last questions. So I guess this is last call, so to speak.
I just want to say thank you. This was so interesting. I'm so looking forward to getting to know everybody, getting to know your countries, and us visiting back and forth. I'm just really excited about this, and thank you for participating today.
Oh, thank you. It was really nice. I'm very excited about it too. So this is really, it's been a lot of fun and really great to be here, and great to get to know you guys and all the questions. Thanks all for all the people we can't see, but thank you guys for attending. And I think it's a really nice first step of hopefully a really good cooperation. I'm really looking forward to it. We're very excited about it.
Marc, Steve Tremaine here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
Just wanted to ask you, send the brochure to me. I'll make sure that all the attendees get it and your presentation,
Definitely.
which I've already received. So we will be sending that out shortly.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Alex, do you have anything? Any parting words from IR?
I'm just finishing this. I'm going to order lunch. The nurse said he's trying to figure out what's going on, why it's delayed. But I'll go order something. If I'm still here, I'll eat it. If not,
Dave, you're on live.
Hey, I'm glad.
Have a nice lunch.
Enjoy your lunch. I hope it's a Dutch restaurant. No, so the one thing I was gonna add, and of course again thank MetroTex and Marc for your contributions. This has been phenomenal. This is sort of a message for the MetroTex members, because I remember Hanne, Christian, and myself actually recommending this before, and it's worked out pretty good. Some people might not see the immediate or like the super close and direct relationship amongst Vervoort area and the Netherlands. But one thing that I would recommend you guys, you'll be surprised, contact the Dutch embassy, the Dutch actually consulate in Dallas. You would be surprised of the amount of companies of Dutch origin that operate in your market. You guys are extremely lucky. You're in a market that could not be more global. You have, obviously, needless to say, direct flights from Dallas, Fort Worth to Amsterdam. I've been taking notes, like the English you guys have brought that up. That's a huge advantage. Not many Ambassador Association relationships can brag about that. You've seen Marc. I mean, it's unbelievable. These guys are absolutely bilingual. That is a big advantage. And the one thing also I wanted to highlight is virtual trade missions. I know Steve, you on staff, Hanne and everybody, we can talk about that, but that's something that has worked out fairly good in the past with other relationships in Western Europe. Maybe doing a virtual trade mission about the MetroTex and the areas that you guys cover, and also Marc on your end, different cities in the Netherlands where you guys are present. I think that would provide value added and keep strengthening the relationship. And we have Hanne and Christian here on the US side that can also help people navigate questions about how an actual transaction looks like when you refer a client to Europe. I don't know, I see a lot of potential, so very excited about this.
Okay, it's there. We are running over a bit, so thank you everybody. I hope you're all as excited as I am about this. And welcome, and we will be in contact very shortly and talk about some of the other things that we can do and get started. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.